I'm going to move a little faster now. I'm already here on the same website we looked at in the previous class, Ancient Mesopotamian Gods and Goddesses. It's still in English. I'm going to switch it to automatic translation into Portuguese.
Course originally recorded in Portuguese and dubbed using artificial intelligence. The course was recorded in 2022, when I was not yet a full-time YouTuber. The knowledge presented here is a treasure, as it brings the scientific foundations that qualified my research and are the resources I use to produce the videos on this channel. I know this dubbed voice is a bit monotonous. Although I speak English fluently, I chose to dub this content because it is older, and I wouldn't be able to re-record 10 videos with the same quality I managed to achieve back then.
I know I tend to talk a lot sometimes, and I hope that's interesting for you, because I make connections with other renaissances, with other texts, with Sitchin's theory, and I believe that adds value for you who are taking this course. I don't just want to show you things or how to get there. I want to talk with you so I can make myself understood and so you can really get the most out of this course. So, let's get started. We've already begun with Anu, and now we'll move on to the brothers, the gods Enki and Enlil. According to Sitchin's theory, here's what we have. Enki, let's start with him, is the firstborn. He is the son of Anu, of the god Anu, King Anu, with a concubine. And Enlil, his half-brother, is also a son of Anu, but with the queen. If I remember correctly, we don't have the queen's name here, but her name is Untu. The big disagreement that happened is that years and years, millennia ago on Nibiru, there was a problem regarding the heirs, about who would be the true legitimate heir. At first, it was the firstborn, and after some time, a new law was established where half-siblings could marry each other, and with that, there was the law of the double seed, as is the case with Enlil. There is one generation and another generation, on one side and on the other side the queen, so, being born from this double seed, he ends up being the true heir, while Enki would not be the true heir, but would be because he is the firstborn. We have this big divergence, that shows up. These are the asides I'm making here, okay? We have this divergence that appears in Sitchin's texts. Let me make it very clear. I have never found any myth in these sources that we are going to look at that shows all of this happening on Nibiru, whether Nibiru is or isn't a planet. The sources I found so far, the Sumerian tablets, show absolutely nothing in this regard. However, I need to draw a parallel here, and Sitchin must have done this. If he, didn't read it in the tablets, he certainly did it on purpose. We have here the confusion, let's put it that way, with Abram, who changes his name to Abraham after his encounter with the biblical entity known as Yahweh. Abram couldn't. He wasn't able to have children with his wife, and ended up having his first child with a concubine, and then his second child with his wife, who, according to the story, was healed by God so she could have children. So the story that Sitchin tells us about the law of the seed, the law of the double seed, the law of succession from Nibiru, ends up matching with these things that we see happening. So let's stick to what we're looking at. This cylinder seal, it's, let me just make a quick aside. Yeah, I don't know. You might have noticed that it would be better if you could watch these lessons on a bigger screen, like a TV or a laptop, so you can actually read these little things here, since they end up being a bit too small, right? Even if I zoom in, I'm already looking at it and thinking about the editing, right? I could crop out this little part here and zoom in on this section, but we wouldn't really gain that much by doing that. So if you prefer to watch on your phone, you'll hear me talking and see everything really tiny, right? But I recommend that you watch on a TV or on a laptop, a computer, maybe a tablet, which is a bit bigger, so you can get more out of it, okay? So this here is the god Enki, and this one here is also the god Enki. I'll show you later how we get to these, to other tablets that are at the British Museum. Let's test this image here. I haven't tested it recently. Look, here it is. We've reached this image from the British Museum. Come here. because I take the images when I do this, and I'm still going to make many more videos about tablets on my channel. Alright? We can zoom in as much as we want. It takes a little while, it loads, and then the image looks beautiful, right? It looks amazing so we can really see, and here is the god Enki sitting on a throne. It's very common for us to see the gods called Dinger in Sumer, right, and the Anunnaki themselves too, as them sitting in a certain position, right? I've even seen a documentary from Origines in the past that did the following. It had a little animation showing the god sitting here and then an animation with the god standing up. And when the god stands up, he is, well, there's not even enough height here for us to go. He goes up to about here. Much taller than the other men. So, it's important to clarify that in academic and scientific literature, according to historians, it's common for us to depict gods with a greater stature precisely to show that they are above humans. Interpret and understand it however you want. I'm not going to get into that subject, okay? Some people will say that the Anunnaki are the same as the Nephilim. By the way, let it be clear that Sitchin said this, and you could also say that they are, giants. Not giants as in 10 meters tall, but a bit taller, like 2 or 3 meters. I remember American basketball players, right, who are really tall, those American players. So, it must be something like that, okay? So, if this figure were to stand up, he would look even taller. We can see that this is the god Enki here, because we have this water surrounded by fish, which is a symbol of Enki. Let's see if this other image above opens up here. You see that this is the more traditional image we have here, and it's very commonly depicted, right? You'll see here the god Enki, once again, surrounded by water and fish. Here is the goddess Inanna, whom we'll look at next. I'm not even going to comment on that now, otherwise I'll get off topic, okay? But she's here, look, Ishtar, who is the same as Inanna or Ishtar, okay? And later I'll translate this here. Actually, I'm going to show you it's not going to be in this class, okay? It'll be in the next one. I'm going to show you a shortcut, right? A shortcut, you know, traveler talk. Just a way of saying it, right? Something really simple. But I imagine you've never thought of doing this to read the Sumerian tablet. I'm going to show you how we get to these cylinder seals here, okay? I'll show you this in the next class. It won't be in this one, okay? I'm going to close this image and this image, and we'll come back here with this bad. Well, this one that's here, right? So we can keep reading. What do you have to say? This here is another image, another representation, okay? But it's not exactly a representation of the god Enki. Let's see if it opens here, because it's interesting for me to show this image, since this is one of those known as Apkallu, one of the great sages who is said to have been, created by Enki. You can already see here a name I always mention. Look, Sir Austin Henry Layard. You'll see here Ashurbanipal, right? Ashurbanipal II, which is Ashurbanipal II. Here there's the whole description of the image, and here we're going to see it nice and big. Look. Here it is, the famous clock, and so, enigmatic, right? The famous clock here in better definition. Look. Our famous little basket too. These are some very enigmatic things here in the images, right? We end up saying, oh, the Anunnaki. This one is not an Anunnaki, okay? He has a fish head here. Anyway, he's not an Anunnaki, but he was created by Enki, according to some myths. Not all myths are going to say that, okay? Some centuries, no. So let's take a look at who Enki is. Enki is the lord of the Abzu. Here we can already see that he is the lord of the Abzu, but his name is Enki, which means lord, and Ki, which means earth. So he is also the lord of the earth, okay? The god Ea, whose Sumerian equivalent was Enki. I forgot to mention that part, right? Ea is his name in Sumerian. Sorry, the Sumerian name is Enki. Ea is just a name, in another culture. He is known by these two names, okay? If I'm not mistaken, It's in Akkad that he goes by the name Ea. He is one of the three most powerful in the pantheon, along with Anu and Enlil. He resides in the ocean, beneath the earth called Abzu, which is the Akkadian Apsu. Here you can see a difference between Apsu and Abzu. If we go by Sitchin, Abzu is where the heart-shaped lands are, right, deep within the earth, in a heart shape, where gold is best found. These are the golden veins of Tiamat, as Sitchin's theory puts it. And here we have Apsu, which is then the primordial progenitor, according to Sitchin's theory, who, together with Tiamat, mixes their waters and thus gives rise to everything else that exists. Here comes the water, which is the Archie of Thales of Miletus, which we'll also read about in the Enuma Elish, and which I mentioned to you in previous classes, that can be considered a universal principle. For Thales of Miletus, water is the Archie, and it also appears at other times, in other myths, in other moments of the mythologies. It was an important place in the cosmic geography of Mesopotamia, the Abzu. For example, it is said that the city of Babylon was built on top of the Abzu. You see, right? An academic source is saying this here, right? Who am I to say otherwise? The Sumerian texts about Enki usually include openly sexual depictions of his virile masculinity. I bet those who are used to Sitchin's theories have never read this anywhere, right? In particular, there is a metaphorical connection between the life-giving, vivifying, properties of the god semen and the animating nature of the water of the Abzu. Until recently, however, many of the more explicit details had been suppressed in modern translations. Suppressed in modern translations. Interesting, isn't it? There is a text that we'll look at, if possible, probably still in this class, called Enki in the World Order, Enki and the Order of the World. And in this text, we have the god Enki, ejaculating over one of the rivers. I can't remember now if it's the Tigris or the Euphrates, or if it's just a river, and giving rise to fish and to everything, to all life in the river. Interpret that however you want to. As I said before, these are myths. If you've ever come into contact with Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Slavic, Scandinavian, or Celtic mythology, you know that myths, right, have confusing things, right? Like, Kronos eating his children. If I'm not mistaken, it's Kronos in Greek mythology. Enchantment, wisdom, and cleanliness. We'll get to the creator and protector of humanity soon. We'll definitely get there. Ea is associated with wisdom, magic, and enchantments. He was a favorite god among diviners, baru, and exorcist priests. Exorcist priests in ancient Sumer, because he is the supreme source of all ritual knowledge used by exorcists to ward off and expel evil. Ea was the patron of arts and crafts and all other achievements of civilization. His connection with water also meant that Ea was the protective deity of cleaners. Let's see. Let's switch back to English here. What does these cleaners mean? Yeah. Here, cleaners. Yeah, cleaners. Yeah, cleaners. Cleaner means to clean, right? Cleaner is the people who clean. Unfortunately, I can't explain this to you any better, okay? Creator and protector of humanity. Ea is the creator and protector of humanity in the Babylonian flood myth, Atrahasis, and in the Epic of Gilgamesh. He devised a plan to create humans from clay so they could do work for the gods. Academic sources say, create humans from clay or from the clay, right? Let's pull it from English here. It says, from clay. I've come across this text I'm showing you before, but it's been a really, really long time. Look, create humans out of clay. This out of here means taken from, right, taken out of. So it means based on clay, right, taken from clay. So Ea came up with a plan to create humans, right, humans made of clay. It might seem like they're made of, that they're made of clay, right, but no, they're created out of, coming from clay, so they could do work for the gods. Look, and this word really stands out. Work for the gods. Here's a big fallacy, a huge fallacy. Yeah, I must definitely be hated by a lot of guys on YouTube for bringing up these things. Work for the gods. No one talks about slavery. Humans, according to Sumerian mythology, were not created to be slaves. They were created to work for the gods. Those are very different things. Right? I work, you're probably taking a course, you work and have your money there, your cash to pay for the course, and we work, we're not slaves. It's very different, right? But the supreme god Enlil tried to destroy the humans newly created by EA with a devastating flood. There's the deluge, because their endless noise kept him from sleeping. But the clever EA foresaw Enlil's plan. He instructed a wise man named Atrahasis. Atrahasis is the same sage who appears in the myth of Atrahasis. We're going to take a look at these lessons here as well. Obviously, I can't read all the myths with you. We'll read the most important parts. I'll show you how to get to them, okay? To build an ark so that humanity could escape destruction. I need to remind you that these texts here, this is a text constructed from the study of myths, right? This one, and these things predate the Bible. Before the Bible, we have the creation of humans from clay, the flood, one God who decides to destroy, another God who decides to instruct a human to build an ark. It's all very impactful, right? In the myth Adapa and the South Wind, EA helps humanity maintain the gift of enchantment magic, preventing Adapa from becoming immortal. This also appears in the Epic of Gilgamesh when it says, right, that immortality was destined for the gods and not for men. The creatures of EA. EA was served by his minister, the two-faced god Isimu, Akkadian, Ismu, photo on the right, Enki in image 1. Let's even look at the photo on the right, Enki in image 1 here. I'll be honest with you, I can't really tell the difference, okay? And here, let me make a side note while we scroll down. This is what it means to study the Anunnaki, okay? Like I said, there are things I don't know everything about, but the study of the Anunnaki itself, not the crazy stuff you see out there. The real study of the Anunnaki is about taking texts, reading them, comparing, understanding, and then trying to figure out what's in that image. Now here you'll see something I just mentioned to you, and I even made a video talking about it. Other mystical creatures also inhabited the Abzu with EA, including the 7 mythical sages, the Apkallu, who were created with the purpose of teaching wisdom to humanity. Soon, we'll go to another site that will show the Apkallu in detail. And just to satisfy our curiosity, I want you to do this too. Look, Apkallu. You can just copy and paste. It's easy to copy. Yeah, you'll see here. Look, we just saw an image of Apkallu and I even have an enigmatic figure like that among my things, right? At the Anunnaki store. There's a t-shirt with him. I have a video on my channel. Everyone says this here is an Anunnaki. Who is Apkallu? And who is Apkallu? A creature of EA. That's it. You don't need more than that. 7 mythical sages is something, yeah, interesting for us to study. Right? I'm not going to go down that path here, because otherwise we'll end up creating a Ekur, an X course just to answer those things, right? The definition of this image here is beautiful, huh? You can see it's beautiful. It's really big. I'm going to save this image for myself later. Look, we end up coming across texts that aren't reliable, right? And how do we know they're not reliable? You see it on this site, Total War. I can't base a course for you on that, to explain anything. I'm thinking this image here isn't real. It could be a copy. Yeah, I can't give you a course based on a site like this, right? So, that's why I sometimes say, look how cool, a tattoo with him. Let's close this here. Enki was the son of the god or the goddess Namu and the twin brother of Adad. I'll even admit to you, I don't even know who this Adad is here. It's not clear when he was merged with the god Ea, whose name first appears in the 24th century BC. The tablets, as I've already said, don't have an order. They're not labeled as Part 1, Part 2, like a work in volumes. So they find some tablets and see that there's the god Enki there. Then they see the same characteristics in the god Ea, and then they realize that Ea/Enki are the same god, and that's how we end up knowing, okay? So when we really study the history of actual facts, actual myths, we come across these things. The same thing happens with Marduk and Asarlu, and I'm also going to show you a myth where Asarlu appears passing on to Hammurabi, to King Hammurabi, the orders for the Code of Hammurabi, handing him the scepter of law, and then we read that this loon is the same Marduk. We come to this conclusion because in the prologue of the epic, actually, not the epic, in the prologue of the text, yes, the text of the Code of Hammurabi, we have this information. I'm going to stop here. Well, I'll just read this last part here, that Enki is associated with Eridu, and this part here, Enki also had sexual encounters with other goddesses, particularly in the Sumerian myth Enki and Ninhursag. Enki and Ninhursag, and this here is Ninhursag, who is the same as Ninmah, and we're going to read this myth right after, still in this class, so we're going to move quickly so we can get to Enlil. Enlil is one of the supreme deities of the Mesopotamian pantheon. He decreed destinies, his command could not be changed, he was the god who granted kingship. His temple is Ekur, the house of the mountain, which was located in the city of Nippur, the religious center of Mesopotamia, up until the 2nd millennium before Christ. His temple was the most important temple in all of southern Mesopotamia. There has been much debate about the writing, the etymology, and therefore the meaning of Enlil's name. These elements are important to discuss, also because they relate to an analysis of the functions of this deity. The writing and reading of this deity's name are not certain, they are not definite. Even if we read this symbol here, which we will see in other places, it indicates, this here is the Sumerian writing by itself, okay? And this symbol here indicates God or divinity. Actually, it indicates the dinger in the Sumerian language, and it is the god Enlil. So, if this symbol isn't here, it's not God. So, the god Enlil, the translation of Lil, is controversial. The Sumerian word Lil, whose Akkadian equivalent is Tsakiku, means ghost, haunted ghost, but translating Enlil's name as Lord Ghost makes little sense in the context of his mythological attestations. The interpretation of Lil as wind is apparently a secondary development from the 1st millennium, which led to an interpretation of Enlil's name as Lord Wind or of Lord Air. This interpretation led some scholars to reconstruct a vertically ordered cosmology, consisting of the gods Enlil and Enki, but this remains highly problematic. Other scholars refer to Enlil as the Lord of the Air, and that's why he appears in Sitchin's theory as the Lord of the Winds, the Lord of the Air, when he is seen acting in coordination with storms and winds. For example, Enlil is an addition from Agade, another text here. There are problems, however, with both ideas. The vertical ordering of the Mesopotamian pantheon is quite simplistic, and references to Enlil as a storm are generally in the context of broader destruction, where the storm could be an appropriate image for Enlil as a powerful, devastating god, and not as a specific storm deity. For example, here, which is the lament for Sumer and Ur, right? Without a doubt, Enlil, along with Anu and Enki, forms the supreme Mesopotamian triad of deities. Furthermore, Enlil's prominence and power can be seen in his titles and epithets: the Great Mountain, King of all the lands, Father of the black-headed people. Who are the black-headed people, right? Which I have already explained. They are the way the Sumerians referred to themselves. I'm going to skip this part, okay? If you want, you'll be able to read it, right? You'll have a way to access it. It's important for us to highlight here that Enlil's vizier and messenger was Nusku, or Nuska as well. We'll see this in other texts. I'm not going to show you all of these. I'll just mention here that Inanna, Ishtar, is a very important goddess. We see her here in the center, which is why this image is shown again. Here we have the temple or the gate of Ishtar, Inanna. Ishtar is even represented like this. Look, they are, in fact, the same goddess, one for the Sumerian culture, the other for the Akkadian culture. She is a very important goddess because we have this text here, which I've already mentioned, the descent of Ninmah to the netherworld. Netherworld, the land of emptiness, the land of the underworld or the infernos, which then connects with Tamuzi, all that. All that story I've already told you about in previous lessons, okay? We will also observe here Nergal, one of the gods of the underworld, of death, pestilence, and plague, the lord of the underworld. The other god of the underworld is a goddess of truth, Ereshkigal, whom we will look at here. Lady of the Great Earth, she rules. Why is she called, Lady of the Great Earth? We even see the key here in her name, right? She rules the underworld, so we have these observations. You will be able to read and look at all of these here. Here we have Tiamat, and, believe it or not, for those who think Tiamat is just the name of a planet, your planet. Tiamat is actually the interpretation that Sitchin gives to the Enuma Elish, okay? Tiamat, in fact, is this, the personification of the primordial sea from which the gods were created. She is also the main adversary of Marduk in the Enuma Elish. I'll move on, and now we have the last one, right here, the mother goddess, who is the same as Ninmah, Belay, Illo. She also has other Iberian, Roman, and Etruscan names, and even Mami is used for her. The mother goddess is known by many names, the most prominent being the Sumerian Nintu or Ninter. Other common names are Ninmah Belay. She was responsible for pregnancy and childbirth, and especially in earlier periods, she appears as the creator of humanity. And it's to her that we're going next to read one of the myths. Let's see if the link opens here, right? There's not even a link down here, so we'll move on. I also don't remember ever seeing this image in a large size. Let's see if it opens here. Look! No, it doesn't open. It opens the Louvre Museum with an error. Let's go back here. Just to show you a part. Functions. She was associated with pregnancy or childbirth, as we've already seen. She either puts the children in while they're still in the womb or feeds them after they're born. This part here, feeds them after they're born, is what gives her the title of Mother Goddess. The Mother Goddess also appears as the creator of humanity. In the Akkadian myth of Atrahasis, from the Mesopotamian flood story, Ninta created humanity by mixing clay with the blood of a dead god. She mixes clay with the blood of a dead god. That story that's in the text, yeah, Enuma Elish, which we'll look at as well. We're going to skip straight to here now. Enki and Ninmah, ETCSL. This site here, you just type ETCSL, and we'll get to it. This was my great gem for writing my book, for developing my studies over the years, okay? This first page here, usually the translator doesn't translate it, but look, it already translated it directly. Sometimes it ends up not translating, not recognizing the text on this page, okay? Here we have an about ETCSL, how to use, something about Sumer, miscellanea. But we're going to focus on these two here, right after. First, let me show you this here, look. So you can get familiar, you come here to glossary and go. Go, right, as in go in English. And here we have a glossary with some explanations. I'll put the translation here, with some explanations of what they are, okay? And there's a lot here. This is a glossary, right? For those who, know the books, you know that a glossary is huge. We have here the MSAL glossary. Let's click here so you can see how it appears on the tablets. This here is a transliteration, okay? Here, Enki, Enki. Here is, label. It's the translation. It's how it's translated, okay? Let's go back and I'll show you that we can check the list of proper names here. This list of proper names here will show us how the gods are called and how we can find them, okay? How it is in Sumerian, what its most well-known name is, the official name, and what it means. Here we will find the date and how it appears in Sumerian mythology. When we click here, and, I'll open it here in the manual tab, we find this here. Look, some excerpts from texts where this is written, okay? I'll even open it to show you. Here in TR we have the translation and here we have a text, okay? As you can see, I've said this before, right? There is no order in Sumerian texts. So the text, this one is text 6.1.11, 6.1.11. That's it. Let's put the translator here so we can see, and let's do a Control F to find where it says Adapa. That's it. Adapa does not know loss as he walks through the mountains. I don't even know this text here. I'm not going to read this text with you. It was just to show you, okay? Here we have the name Ninurta. Look, we can see it's not some big craziness, some huge conspiracy. The names are right here. Let's close this, and let's close that. It was just to show you that, okay? What is this for? When we want to do some search, some research. Oh, I want to know if this name is in the Sumerian tablets. I'll come here and check if this name exists. I'll come here and check if this name is here. So I want to show you something. If we go to the home page of this site here and type Dulker in the advanced search, how do I know it's Dubsar? Because I've already searched in these here and I've already found Dubsar. If we go here to the list of proper names and look for Dubsar, sorry, here it's searched, it's written here, okay? If we go to the list of proper names and search for Dubsar, what's my goal here? I want to find out, actually I want to show you, because I always say that Sitchin used the name Dubsar incorrectly, and why I feel confident saying that. So, Dubsar is the master scribe chosen by Sitchin to bring the tablets of the lost book of Enki to us, to humanity. He brings the 14 tablets that have those amazing episodes, not just on my channel, but on others as well, right? So, when we type Dubsar here, we don't find it. Well, if E in Dubsar is a full name, why is it a proper name? Why don't I have it here like I have Dumuzi? Here, royal name, a royal name. Why don't I have it? So, let's go back there and we'll look, not in the proper names, but in the full catalog. Actually, sorry, I got a bit mixed up. It's not in the full catalog. We're going to look in the glossary I showed you earlier. I know that Irene means Lord, okay? Everyone, right? Everyone who studies the Anunnaki knows that. We're going to put here under D, Dub. We're going to find Dub tablet, tablet. There's Dubsar, right? The compound word, the epithet, tablet, do tablet, tablet. And now let's look for Sar. Just Sar. We're going to find several different meanings for Tsar here. I know it's this meaning here. Look, to right. To right. I'll even use a translator here so you can follow along, okay? To right. So I know that Dub is tablet and Tsar is to write. Dubsar would be a master for writing tablets. Now let's see if we can find this tsar. We're going to put the word together. I'm already teaching you how to do an actual Anunnaki study on this site, and I've done this exhaustively over the past few years. I already know the term is a compound word. You can see here, look, my research. Yeah, this is just one of the computers where I did research not too long ago. This computer is very recent. The one where I have more research and more stuff is on the others, okay? We're going to enter Dubsar in the advanced search here. Here we clear it and click go. We're going to come across several texts. I want to show you one in particular, the one where the name Galzu appears together. Galzu is a big mystery in Sitchin's theory. Galzu appears on 2 different occasions, speaking once with Enki and another time with Enlil. Galzu would be a divine emissary, the emissary of the Creator, the emissary of someone above the Anunnaki. All of this is according to Sitchin's theory and not our traditional science, okay? Galzu would be a great emissary in the theory, in Sitchin's theory, an emissary of someone superior to the Anunnaki. Galzu appears explaining to Enki, who was distressed, so, in a semi-sleeping state, he receives instructions from Galzu to speak with the chosen one, Atarasis, and pass on to him the instructions for the art. In Sitchin's theory, Galzu also appears a second time talking to Enlil. In the episode of the Weapons of Terror, the weapons of mass destruction in the nuclear war that happens, according to Sitchin's theory, once again. This stayed in my mind for many years. What the heck is Galzu? Does Galzu exist? Is there someone above the Anunnaki? Did they say that? Is that in the tablets? How am I supposed to find it? We're going to solve this mystery right here and now, in real time, to show you, okay? Here I have the way he appears, and you'll see here that there's this little 10 symbol. This little 10 here means there's some god, right? This god here, Nisaba. Let's investigate together, right? I honestly don't remember if there's a god named Nisaba. I opened a new tab and I'm going to type here, Nisaba god. Let's switch to English, right? Looks like there's nothing, huh? But I didn't use the full name, right? This one is Nisaba Ka. Yeah, these names are complicated, aren't they? We're going to get to the actual text here. We'll find other references. Look, here from a university, an adaptation from the time of Gilgamesh. We don't have, a text actually talking specifically about this text, right? And that's the work I did for many years. Alright, let's close this here. I copied it as D Nisaba, right? Let's try it like this and see what comes up. What I wanted was to know if there's a Wikipedia page so we can find it. Here, look, also known as Nisaba or Ninibgal. That's what I was looking for. A Wikipedia page so we can get information at least a little faster, right? So you see that everything with this D indicates a god in Sumerian mythology, any god, okay? So we already know in advance that we don't have a god in Galzu. If we had a god in Galzu, there would be a little d here, okay? Here is the text where it appears, text 2 for 2.4.2.01. We're going to click here on this TR so we can get the translation. Clicking here on this UTR, we have the whole text. Look here, there's Nibro, which I talk about so much. It's not Nib, it's Nibro that's there, okay? When we click like this, it immediately opens right at the spot where it is. I ended up moving it, but it was like this, okay? It already opens right at the section where that passage is, which is between 19 and 25. And here I'll put up the translator so we can read together. And it says, between lines 19 and 25, I am ascribed knowledgeable in Nisaba. I have perfected my wisdom, as well as my heroism and my strength, my distinction. Trustworthy words can reach me. I appreciate justice, but I do not tolerate wickedness. I hate those who speak ill, because I am a powerful man who likes to use his thighs. I, Suji, the mighty king, superior to all. And so it goes on. The text is huge, right? We've already seen it here, just so we can see what it says about Nibru. Look, it says Nibro here, right? So I rose up like an owl, like a falcon, to return to Nibro in my strength. You can see how everything is really mysterious, right? I'm not going to go on here, okay? You'll see here, look, the black-headed people. The black-headed people are the Sumerians themselves. Then you read the texts, right, if you're interested. Let's go back so we don't. Let me show you. We click here, opening a new tab once again, okay? And I'm going to open here the Sumerian transliteration of those lines. I know those are the lines between 19 and 25, and here I have between lines 19 and 25. Dubsar, I know that's when we put the little name on top. We read that it's a scribe, a writer. Look, what does Gauza mean? Stifu. Let's even type it here, so we can see from the very first what it means, skilled. I had read another text where Galzu is related to the meaning of knowledge. But skilled also means that, right? It also means having knowledge. So, the scribe has knowledge of Nisaba. Let's see what's written there. 1925. I am a scribe knowledgeable in Nisaba. I usually say that if we really want to, we can even learn Sumerian. We can end up speaking Sumerian, okay? I'm overestimating my ability to teach things really quickly. I apologize for the possible lack of organization in this regard. We're going to end the class here, and next time we'll start with the text Enki and Ninmah. We're going to produce this translation here. Look. We're going to produce this translation here, and we're going to read the text Enki and Ninmah, which is a fascinating text, and I'm sure you'll be really moved when you come across it, okay? We're wrapping up this class, and I still have a lot to show you. At this moment, while I'm recording, I don't even know if the class will go a bit over the 40 to 45 minutes I had planned, but my main goal is to give you the information. I hope you enjoyed it, because with what I've shown you here, you can already research everything. Before I finish this class, so we don't waste time in the next one, I'm going to go back to the ETCSL homepage to show you these two things. Corpus, right? Corpus means body of research, right? A body of research by content, by category, and by number. I'm going to close all of this here so it doesn't get confusing, okay? And we're going to open both, body by category and body by number, so you can understand. All the texts available on this site are available like this, okay? Here by category, we can see mythological narratives and compositions, ancient literary texts, catalogs. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put the translation here into Portuguese, right? Compositions with a historical background, royal praise poetry. Then here we have the cities. We have various texts here, okay? These are the same texts that we find when we search by number. But I personally prefer searching by number, okay? Here we see, look, royal praise poetry and compositions with a historical background. Other literature, mythological narrative compositions. We click here on Unicode. And here, in each of them, a bunch of pages will open for us, okay? And here we have what we're going to start reading in the next class already. Enki and Ninmah essay, we have Enki and Ninmah, two very interesting texts. The journey of Enki to Nibro, what I mentioned before, Enki and the world order, it's all here. Let's give a little preview already. It's not this text here that we're going to read, it's this one. Let's give a little preview of what we're going to see in the next class. Here is the transliteration of the text. Notice that here we already have a de indicating a goddess. And here we have Anunnaki, which are, look at the drawing, the Inanna gods. Here is line 4, right? Let's start here to take a look. Look, in those days, in the days when heaven and earth. Let's put up the translation. In those days, in the days when heaven and earth were created, in those nights, in the nights when heaven and earth were created, in those years, the years when destinies were determined, when the Inanna gods, the Anunnaki, we just saw this, were born, when the goddesses were taken in marriage. This part is really cool. And we're going to do it like a TV series episode when it gets good. Right when it gets good, it ends. And that's how we're going to finish, and I'll see you here in lesson number 8, which is going to be one of the best in this course, I'm sure of it. We're going to come across the creation of human beings and what looks like some kind of genetic research they're doing here in this text. I'll see you in just a bit. If you're really anxious, just hit play and watch it right away. See you then.